The Joe Rogan Experience.
I used to work at this tech company, and like we had a lot of Chinese people that worked. It was a computational biochemistry research lab, so of course we had a lot of Chinese people that worked there because they were.
What are you trying to say?
Very smart and qualified.
That sounds racist.
And that's my favorite thing is like when you're like, you're racist. I just said you were smart.
Hey, we said you're amazing. Is it racist that you guys are amazing?
Well, then people, they're like, not all Chinese people are doing well. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure there's Chinese people that aren't doing well, but, you know, their parents never talk about them.
Well, there's a lot of Chinese people. When you say not all Chinese people are doing well, there's fucking a billion of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty that aren't doing well, but the ones that are doing well are doing really well.
Yeah, you're concentrating on the glass is half empty.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
But
there's a billion people.
The Chinese people that worked at this tech company, if they were Chinese nationals, they were only allowed to have access to certain parts. Like there were certain parts they had to keep separate from them and they couldn't know about.
Did they come over and stare at your computer?
I had one guy who worked
hey, what are you working on?
And me, I'm just recruiting new people to work here. You're not going to get anything from me. I don't understand what we're doing here. But the one guy who worked there, he came over, didn't know any English, and he learned English by watching Seinfeld. So I kid you not, he had this Seinfeld cadence that he spoke with.
Where's the break room?
And he'd enter rooms a little bit like Kramer.
No.
I swear, not the full thing, but every time he'd come into the office, he'd be like, whoa.
No. Really?
I swear.
Whoa, that's weird. I wonder if there's an equivalent show in China where if you went over there and tried to learn Mandarin from a television show, like what would you concentrate on?
Yeah, it's like a way to hold your... I'm going to get too racist. Yeah. Hold on.
Chopsticks.
Yeah.
Don't say it.
Isn't it funny
that chopsticks is racist? No, it's racial, you fucks. There's a difference between racial and racist.
Yeah, exactly.
I enjoy chopsticks.
Yeah.
It's a great way to eat salad, by the way.
I think people are often used to the bury my heart at Wounded Knee narrative of Native Americans, which is as victims.
Yeah.
And there's no question that they were victims of a westward rolling empire and 378 broken treaties, and we can just go on and we know what that narrative is like. But the narrative that I told was a narrative of power, of dominance, of power, which came with brutality too. And I think it was a fact. It was a fact that if you go back in time, these Native American tribes, that eventually got crushed, as the Comanches did, and put on a reservation somewhere and had their livelihood taken away from them. But you know, it really anyway. It's a huge deal, and a narrative that I think to me that doesn't take into account the enormous power and dominance and behavior of Comanches is just missing, you know, half the narrative.
Well, it's so fascinating because it's essentially they were living like Stone Age people, and they were doing it very recently. They were doing it like in terms of the way Europe is. You could go and see buildings in Italy that were built long before any of this stuff happened, long before the settlers started encountering them, and they were living like this in this sort of, I mean, it's very romantic. The way they live, just chasing the buffalo and killing them, and then eating only buffalo meat, and then doing very little farming, picking some berries and nuts, and that's about it. I mean, it was just eating meat and raiding and killing.
Yeah, they were hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
They were nomadic hunter-gatherers,
yeah.
Which is what they were. And what the horse allowed them to do which is what they had been before. The horse allowed them to do that only just really, really, really well. In other words, they weren't in a position of becoming agricultural Indians. The horse gave them this ability to, and as you said, they got everything from the buffalo: clothing and lodging and tools and saddles and bridles and food. I mean, everything came from the buffalo. So the horse just enabled them to do this on an incredibly sophisticated level.
That was at Zanzibar?
Whoa.
I think.
What kind of meat is all that?
Shit, I don't know. Something I ain't finna eat. I told you I only eat McDonald's, man. Like, I don't trust matter of fact, me and Andrew one time, we went to, we did not the Hip Hop Awards, the MTV Awards over in Europe. And while we was over there, the crew and everything, and I traveled a lot, and I'm like, they was like, man, we finna go get something to eat. And I'm like, I ain't eating that shit. Like, nah, come on, let's go get something to eat. I was like, man, you gonna fuck up. We go over there. everybody, the whole crew had to go to the hospital. I was the only one that didn't go.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't eat that shit.
So they all got food poisoning.
They all got food poisoning trying to eat.
Andrew too?
I'm not sure. He said he didn't, but I swear I told him too. He said he didn't get it, but he might have listened to me that time. But for the most part, I just don't eat. When I go out the country, I eat shit that I'm used to: fruit, rice, chicken, and McDonald's.
McDonald's, you ever see one of those cheeseburgers where they put it on a shelf for a year and they film it for a year to see if it deteriorates? A year later, it looks like it just got put there.
That's a good thing, though. Right? Shit.
Maybe.
That's like space food. Like, that's space food. Like, if space food is good for astronauts, it got to be good for us. Like, we be hating on McDonald's way too much. Like, nobody's really died on paper. From McDonald's.
Right, they have from Jack in the Box.
They died from eating a lot. You eat anything a lot, you gonna die. There's people eat fish and fat as fuck.
That's true. But I think someone's died from E. coli. I think that was Jack in the Box, though, right? They had an E. coli outbreak.
I mean, but that could be at everything. That could be at any restaurant, any place. That shit that you just showed on there, I'm pretty sure it's E. coli and that shit. They just their body immune to it.
Yeah,
that's one thing I did learn too from traveling. At the end of the day, you can eat anything. You just can't eat a lot of it.
If you're looking at endurance as well, the adaptations in the mitochondria as well, you can get some acute adaptations, so very short term, like, bigger whatever, guns in 6 weeks or faster 400 meters in 6 weeks. Yes, you can do that. But these adaptations are transient. So it takes time for things to really get solidified. And also, if you're more patient with your progression as well, you're going to find that your gains are much more stable if you take some time off, which is important for anybody. You travel, you get sick, some other thing happens. So if you've been training in a manner where you're not forcing yourself, in fact, this is one of the very important points in that Soviet coaches would make, that do not force the adaptation. David Rigard is probably the greatest weightlifter of all times. So he's over 60 world records in several weight classes, and just unbelievable athlete. So he just made a point that do not force the strength development. Do not force mass development. That's another problem. It's possible to build muscle fast, but it's not going to be necessarily very quality muscle. So yes, take your time. And this is interesting enough, Joe. This is what old timers understood. I'm a fan of books by old-time strongmen. Not all of them, of course, but some of them are just remarkable. Earl Lederman, he was an American strongman, an educator. He wrote a book back in 1925 called The Secrets of Strength, and it's an awesome book. So you read this book, and if you follow the directions in this book from 1925, you will get far superior results than from most pop fitness and strength programs. Because people who had some common sense, they were able to, again, observe what's going on. They were not driven by some slogan, one more rep, whatever.
Yeah. A lot of people thought that was all fake until Alex Jones and John Ronson was with him, right? Yes.
I don't know who was with him, actually.
Yes. I'm pretty sure. Google that. Make sure I'm right. I'm pretty sure it was Ronson. I'm pretty sure Ronson was. I know it was. He was talking about it. He was talking about it on the podcast about like that they couldn't believe what they found. So this is this place, Bohemian Grove, and the idea was that all the elites would go there and they would engage in these occult rituals.
This is in America?
Yeah, it's in California.
Oh,
it's like Northern California. And so you hear about this and you're like, what? Like if you heard about that, like, hey, there's a place. Former presidents go, top-ranking generals and heads of state and bankers and famous artists. They go to this place and they do occult rituals. Yeah. They perform occult rituals.
Part 4 of The Secret Rulers of the World, directed by John Ronson. He travels with Alex Jones too.
There you go.
What's that? Netflix?
I don't know where you can find it at the moment. It was on.
You can definitely see it on YouTube.
Right.
You can definitely see the interaction on YouTube. So Alex films these people worshiping Moloch, the owl god, and doing this thing. He completely sneaks in, just acts like he belongs there. Just let him in. They have a gate, guarded gate. Just fucking, hey, how you doing? He looks like a Republican. They let him through. He is there filming them. They have an effigy, like a bunch of straw and shit that's supposed to represent a person that you're sacrificing to Moloch the owl god. They're dressed in these crazy hoods. They put the effigy down. They say they have those loudspeakers. They have this crazy speech they give. It's so weird. But these are like legitimate, wealthy, famous people, politicians. These people are heads of banks and shit. And they're going there and they're dressing up. This is real.
Right.
Like, this isn't, like, you hear things like that. You're like, well, that's nonsense, right? That's nonsense. That doesn't really happen. There's not a real, like, Bilderberg meeting. They don't really get together and fucking pretend they're burning hookers.
They really do.
They really do. Yeah. And so he films this. And, like, it's one of the first things that got me thinking about conspiracies. As much as you can think that Alex is a wacky guy, and he's certainly eccentric. And he's not always right, you know, and that's part of the problem when you're being lied to left and right by so many different things. You can get real off on things, and he did.
Right.
He's gotten, it's been beaten into the ground. But the fact is that there are a certain amount of these things out there like that. And if it wasn't for Alex releasing that video, I think most people would think that's nonsense. But when you see that video, you have to go, okay, what is this? What is going on? Are they really dressing up? Is this really an occult ritual? What is this?